Waitress feeds a hungry kid. Next day, Billionaire offers her a life-changing job. What if a simple act of kindness could change your entire life in ways you never imagined? At Mel's Diner on the outskirts of Phoenix, 34-year-old Lisa Monroe was wiping down tables after another long shift when she noticed him. A small boy, maybe 8 years old, pressing his face against the rain-streaked window. His clothes were too big, his sneakers had holes, and his eyes held that hollow look she recognized all too well from her own childhood. She'd seen plenty of folks down on their luck, but something about this kid tugged at her heart in a way that made her chest tight. The dinner rush had ended. The last customer had left their tip and headed into the stormy October night, and here was this little soul looking like he hadn't eaten in days. Lisa glanced at the leftover shepherd's pie cooling under the heat lamps, then back at those big, hopeful eyes. Sometimes the smallest decisions change everything. Where are you watching from tonight? Lisa had been working at Mel's for 6 years, ever since she'd moved to Phoenix with nothing but a beat-up Honda and dreams that seemed to shrink a little more each month. The diner wasn't much: cracked vinyl booths, a coffee pot that gurgled like it was dying, and a bell above the door that rang off-key. But it was steady work. And steady work meant keeping her tiny apartment and maybe saving up enough to finally finish the nursing program she'd started 3 times and never completed. Her manager, old Mel himself, had gone home early with his bad hip acting up again, leaving her to close alone. The boy outside looked like he was trying to work up the courage to come in. His small hands pressed against the glass as he watched her move around the empty diner. Lisa's heart clenched. She knew that look. The way hunger made you feel invisible, like you didn't belong anywhere. When she was his age, she'd stood outside plenty of restaurants with her mother, both of them too proud to ask for help but too desperate to walk away. Without really thinking about it, she unlocked the door and stepped outside into the cool desert night. "Hey there, sweetheart," she said gently, crouching down to his level. "You look like you could use some dinner." The boy's eyes went wide, and for a moment she thought he might run. Instead, he nodded so hard his dark hair fell into his eyes. "I don't have any money," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the distant traffic. "Well, lucky for you, I've got this whole shepherd's pie that's going to go bad if somebody doesn't eat it," Lisa said with a smile. "And I hate wasting food. You'd be doing me a favor." She led him inside, settled him at her favorite corner booth, and watched his face light up when she set down a generous plate along with a tall glass of milk. He ate like he hadn't seen food in days, polite but desperate, thanking her between every bite. When he finally looked up, his cheeks pink with warmth and his belly full, he smiled at her with such pure gratitude that Lisa felt tears prick her eyes. "What's your name, honey?" she asked. "Alex," he said quietly. "Alex Richardson." Over the next hour, Lisa learned that Alex had been staying with his grandmother while his father traveled for business. But his grandmother had gotten sick and was in the hospital. He'd been trying to take care of himself, but the money his dad had left was running out, and he was too scared to call anyone. Lisa's heart broke a little more with each detail. This kid was trying so hard to be brave, to handle things on his own, just like she'd had to do when she was small. "Where's your dad now?" she asked gently, refilling his milk glass. Alex shrugged, looking suddenly small again. "He's supposed to come back soon. He sends money, but—" He trailed off, and Lisa could fill in the blanks. She'd lived that uncertainty, that constant worry about whether the adults in your life would come through. She made a decision that felt both completely natural and terrifying. "Tell you what, Alex, how about you come back here tomorrow after school? I'll make sure you get dinner, okay? And maybe we can figure out how to help your grandmother, too." The relief on his face was everything. She gave him her cell phone number, made him promise to call if he needed anything, and watched him walk carefully down the street toward the bus stop, shoulders straighter than when he'd arrived. But as Lisa locked up the diner that night, doubts crept in. She was barely making ends meet herself. Her bank account had exactly $437. Her car needed new brakes, and she'd been putting off buying groceries for 3 days. How could she afford to feed another person? What if Mel found out she was giving away food? What if she was overstepping somehow? Still, when she thought about Alex's grateful smile, about the way he'd carefully folded his napkin when he was done eating, she knew she'd made the right choice. Some things were more important than money or rules. If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up. The next morning brought an unexpected twist. As Lisa was setting up for the breakfast rush, a man in an expensive charcoal suit walked through Mel's front door. He looked completely out of place among the truckers and construction workers, his polished shoes clicking against the worn linoleum. He had kind eyes but carried himself like someone who was used to people listening when he spoke. He asked for her by name. "Are you Lisa Monroe?" the man asked, and something in his voice made her stomach drop. Her first thought was that something had happened to Alex, that maybe she'd gotten the boy in trouble somehow. "Yes, sir," she managed, wiping her suddenly sweaty palms on her apron. "Is everything all right?" The man's expression softened. "I'm Jonathan Richardson. I believe you met my son Alex last night." Lisa's world tilted. This polished, clearly wealthy man was Alex's father? The boy had been alone, hungry, taking care of himself while his dad was traveling for business. A flash of anger rose in her chest. Where had this man been when his child was pressing his face against restaurant windows, looking for scraps? "I just got back from Singapore this morning," Jonathan continued as if reading her thoughts. "Alex told me what you did for him, how you fed him, how kind you were." His voice caught slightly. "I had no idea he was... The things had gotten so difficult while I was gone." Lisa studied his face and saw something she recognized. Guilt, regret, the weight of choices that couldn't be undone. She'd carried that same look for years after her own mother died, wondering if she could have done something different. "He's a good kid," she said carefully. "Really polite, really smart, but he was scared." Jonathan nodded, looking suddenly older. "His grandmother had a stroke 3 weeks ago. I thought I'd arranged everything. Thought he was being looked after properly. I had no idea the woman I'd hired to help had stopped showing up, that he was fending for himself." He paused, running a hand through his hair. "I've been trying to build something, to provide for his future, but I almost lost sight of providing for his present." There was something in the way he said it that made Lisa think of her own father, who'd worked 3 jobs to keep their family afloat but missed every school play, every important moment, trying so hard to give her opportunities that he forgot to simply be there. "The thing is," Jonathan continued, "Alex hasn't stopped talking about you, about how safe you made him feel, how you treated him like family." He met her eyes. "I've been looking for someone to help me with Alex, someone who understands what he needs, someone who has the heart you showed him last night." Lisa felt her pulse quicken. "What are you saying? Have you ever faced a moment that could change everything? Let us know in the comments. I'd like to offer you a job," Jonathan said quietly. "Taking care of the most important person in my world." Lisa stared at Jonathan, her mind racing. "You want me to be Alex's babysitter?" she asked, confusion clear in her voice. Jonathan shook his head. "Not a babysitter. I'm talking about something much more significant." He pulled out a business card. Richardson Development Group, it read, with Jonathan's name as CEO. "I run a real estate development company. We're expanding rapidly, and I need someone I can trust completely to manage our family foundation, to oversee the charitable programs we're launching. But more than that, I need someone who can be there for Alex, who can provide the stability and care he deserves while I'm traveling." The words hit Lisa like a wave. This wasn't just about watching a child. This was about a career, a real future, the kind of opportunity she'd only dreamed about during those long nights studying for classes she could never quite finish. The position comes with a substantial salary, full benefits, and housing in the guest house on our property so Alex would have consistency, Jonathan continued. "But honestly, the qualifications I'm looking for can't be found on any resume. They're about character, about the kind of person who sees a hungry child and doesn't hesitate to help." Lisa's hands trembled as she processed what he was saying. "Why me? You don't even know me." "I know that you fed my son when he was hungry. I know that you gave him your phone number and told him to call if he needed anything. I know that he slept better last night than he has in weeks because one stranger showed him kindness." Jonathan's voice was steady but emotional. "In my business, I've learned to read people quickly. Character matters more than credentials, and you've got the kind of character I want around my son." The dinner bell rang as the morning rush began, but Lisa barely heard it. She thought about Alex's grateful smile, about her tiny apartment with its leaking faucet and unpaid bills piling up on the kitchen table. She thought about all the times she'd started something and couldn't finish it, all the dreams she'd put on hold because survival took everything she had. "I'd need to give Mel notice," she said quietly, and realized as the words came out that she'd already made her decision. Jonathan smiled for the first time since walking in. "Of course. Take whatever time you need. If you've been enjoying this story, subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales." But then Lisa remembered something that made her pause. What about Alex's grandmother? Is she going to be okay? Jonathan's smile grew warmer. "She's stable now, thank God. The stroke was serious, but she's responding well to treatment. She'll need ongoing care, which is actually part of why this position is so important. Alex adores his grandmother, and I want him to be able to visit her regularly to maintain that connection. Having someone like you coordinating his schedule, making sure he doesn't lose any more of the people he loves, that's invaluable." 3 weeks later, Lisa stood in the guest house that was now her home, watching through the kitchen window as Alex played in the backyard with his grandmother, who was visiting for the afternoon. The old woman moved slowly, but her eyes were bright, and the sound of Alex's laughter filled the air like music. Lisa had never imagined that helping one hungry child could lead to this, a job she genuinely loved, coordinating programs that fed families throughout Phoenix, a beautiful home, and, most importantly, being part of something that felt like the family she'd always wanted. The foundation work turned out to be everything Jonathan had promised and more. Lisa discovered she had a natural talent for organizing community outreach programs, for connecting with people who needed help, and finding ways to provide it with dignity. She was finally using all those nursing courses she'd started and stopped, all that life experience of knowing what it felt like to struggle. Every day brought new challenges, but also the deep satisfaction of making a real difference. Alex had bloomed under the consistent care and attention. His grades improved, he made friends, and he started teaching Lisa to play chess, a game his grandmother had taught him. In the evenings, they'd sit at the kitchen table, moving pieces across the board while she helped him with homework and he told her about his day. Jonathan, true to his word about being more present, made it home for dinner at least 4 nights a week now, and their little routine felt natural and warm. "You know what's funny?" Alex had told her just the night before as they were cleaning up after dinner. "I used to be scared all the time, but now I know that even when bad things happen, there are always people who care enough to help." Standing in her bright, cheerful kitchen now, Lisa understood that the night she'd opened the diner door for one scared, hungry child, she'd opened the door to her own future. Sometimes kindness was its own reward, but sometimes, just sometimes, it came back to you in ways you never could have imagined. She thought about that young woman who'd been wiping down tables just weeks ago, worried about making rent, afraid to dream too big. That woman couldn't have known that one simple decision would transform everything, that choosing compassion over convenience would lead to a life filled with purpose and belonging. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes in our lives.